Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Sid and Terry's Doctor Who podcast. Are you there, Sid? Are you there?
Sorry, I am now. I was just waking up after watching the episode 6 of Flux.
Flux, yes. I remember that.
What the Flux? Gosh, I wanted it to be so nice. You know, it was a roller coaster ride for both of us. It started off wonderfully, then it dipped, and then it dipped a little more, and then was back up. I think we agree that the Weeping Angels episode was our favorite. And what's Kevin McNally's
Kevin McNally.
Episode 6 of Flux was surprising, and it was not surprising. I was really hoping for a grand ending, but I think I mentioned this to you when you put title cards up on each scene, where to tell the viewer where we are at any given time. When or where in time. It was awfully doggone confusing. I have never been more confused. And I keep thinking, am I this dumb? Or is it just too much?
So the whole thing about too much, it's that to me is a contradiction personally for me, because 10 minutes into episode 6, I was saying to myself, can we just get on with it? Just get on with it. Just please, let's get on with this now. And I was thinking, I've got another 45 minutes, 50 minutes of this to go, and I wanted it to be over. And there was so many plot lines that seemed to need resolving, but ultimately none of them had any impact on the story. We were given this Vinder and Bella plot line, which we both agreed it sort of happened too late in the series. Should have been almost from episode 1. We were told that there's a baby on the way, and they were desperate to get back to each other, but nothing happened with them. Yes, they got back together in TARDIS, and she announced to him that she was pregnant, and that was that. I'm thinking, okay, well, what relevance did they have to the story? Likewise, Diane and Dan, again, it was that two characters that needed to get back together again, but when they got back together again, she just dismissed him. So what was the point of that storyline? Also, how did this Diane character suddenly become so aware of what she was doing and how she was doing it, and what she needed to do to resolve the whole plot? And the fact that she told the Doctor, get the Flux into passenger, it just didn't seem that, that there's lots of kind of resolutions that happened that didn't really resolve anything. Nothing was required, and the plot lines weren't required. And I've always kind of been taught when writing, whether it's novels or scripts, that every scene has to mean something.
Tell the story. Yes.
And if it's not required, get rid of the scene. I'm not a showrunner. I don't work for the BBC. I don't have the experience that the current showrunner purportedly has. But what the showrunner desperately needed was a script editor. And I don't think there was one. I may be mistaken, but it didn't feel like there was one. I'm sure there was none listed on the credits, but I may be wrong.
So we have a doctor and 2 companions. And then we have the ancillary characters that have been running through the 6 episodes.
Yep.
And it still seemed like too much.
Yeah, but too much of nothing.
Yes. Good grief. When it ended, I was like, okay, well, we could have had everything with the fob watch, that could have been that should have been introduced right from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. So she dropped the fob watch into the TARDIS core and said, hide it away until I ask for it. And I think, well, okay, are we looking at that then for the next 3 specials? So we were kind of tempted with this fob watch. But see, the problem with the fob watch, it's a great MacGuffin for a plot. It worked perfectly for the Master, worked perfectly for human nature. But the fob watch was introduced, used, resolved, explained at the end of those stories.
That's correct.
We were given the fob watch again in Flux, but nothing was it wasn't used. So again, another plot line which is left dangling that isn't even resolved there. And I'm thinking, well, what? He's only got 3 more hours to wrap up Jodie's story. Are we going to have 3 hours of the 3 specials, 3 hours of convoluted, confusing, unresolved? I don't know. It's just really frustrating me.
So in America, I decided to purchase the series via Amazon Prime. So I'm sure the BBC thanks me for paying for it, and I don't mind paying for it. But I woke up Monday morning because Amazon normally doesn't have this the show available until Monday morning. So I typically watch it on Monday. Well, I woke up and a number of friends who are also fans of Who, I started scrolling through Instagram and Facebook, and there were all these negative comments. And I thought, wow, okay, well, I may not be as heated as some of these. I'm just not digging the season, not digging the writing, not digging the lack of interest in the characters, and just ready for RTD to return ASAP.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of irritation out there for this. So it's sad.
It is really sad. And we kind of discussed a lot in previous podcasts about the whole kind of early adopters or pre-Hartnell version of the Doctor, whether he or she is called Doctor at that point, we don't know. But I was kind of looking at now Flux is finished. I was kind of looking at that whole timeless child storyline again, which Chibnall was really hammered home the second time, even though it was not hammered home enough for the last series. I'm thinking, if you came to the show wanting to be progressive, and clearly that's what Chibnall had in his head, to be progressive. He had a female Doctor. He wanted to use the certainly series 11 and 12 as some platform for his opinions. Even one of the trailers had Jodie looking up and the glass sitting above her shattered, breaking the glass ceiling. So it was pretty blunt what he was trying to do with the series. And he was obviously being progressive. Now, if you're being progressive, why on earth would you want to go back to the beginning of the series and rewrite it? To me, that's not progressive. That's not progressing the character. That's regressing the character.
Sure.
And it's regressing the character unnecessarily. We don't need to know that now all of a sudden the character that we've known and loved for 58 years is no longer a Time Lord. And isn't the character that ran away to escape from Thomas Society and now has this whole other hundreds of lives before them that they didn't know about themselves. It just, like we said before, just waters down the character. Now we know this character can never die. So where is the threat, the danger? yes, we know that they can regenerate and keep going, but if we now know the character is immortal, literally immortal, that's just taken away the idea of the character. I know that we have. I'm going to talk about a character in a minute that is considered immortal in some ways, but it takes away the idea of caring for these characters, for that particular character. And if you want to be progressive in a show, from this point, Chris Chibnall, let's say the Doctor's now going to become something from this point onwards, not she was this thing before we even knew them.
Sure. I think that's a very good point. I'm like, okay, so why don't you run off and help Russell T fix this?
Well,
and
yeah,
exactly what I have, and I'm hoping that Russell T does indeed. I think he's got something to work with that meta universe. Maybe we're seeing an alternate path. I think everything's correctable in the genre that Who exists in. However, it's not meant to have to fix things. It's meant to expand things.
Yeah, that's right. And you think, okay, did we not have the reveal of the watch because this allows Russell to say, actually, she's now opened the watch. This is what really is the truth. I don't know. Perhaps he is being cautious. Perhaps he is aware of the backlash he's getting for the Timeless Children. So for 6 episodes, kind of before I forget about saying this, for 6 episodes, we're required as Doctor Who fans and as an audience generally, Doctor Who fans or not, to invest and spend time with these characters, watch them get introduced to them, watch them progress, develop, adapt, go through conflicts, find dramatic reasons for doing certain things, and there's a resolution at the end of those 6 hours. I got none of that from Flux at all, apart from the Kevin McNally character, who I thought was killed for no reason.
Absolutely.
It's just like, okay, he was a character that actually had something to do in the series that was relevant to the plot, and they got rid of him. And the point I'm making is we've had 6 hours of television where we're meant to be invested in these characters and care about them. I only cared about one over those 6 hours. I started watching on BBC last night. I didn't realize it was on BBC, so it was a nice surprise. The new Superman and Lois TV series. That's a spin-off from Supergirl and Arrow and so on. The guy who plays Superman, Tyler Hoechlin, was in Supergirl as Superman, so that's where his version stemmed from. He's now got his own series. I watched the episode 1 last night on BBC iPlayer, and in the first 10 minutes, I knew exactly what version of Superman this was, why he was like he was, what drove him to be how he was in this particular version of Superman. And I cared about him and those around him in the first 10 minutes. And when the pilot episode finished, I thought, I need to watch the second one. And I did. I watched the second one. But the point I'm making is I was invested from the moment it started about a long-running character who is considered immortal in some ways, who's had many iterations, many different versions over the decades, but is fundamentally the same character.
And there you have it.
There you go. And,
so I, like you, go back and watch those 6 episodes, and I just have a lackadaisical review of it. It's just like, okay.
Yeah. I have no interest in watching series 11 or 12 again. I have no interest in watching series 13 again. We're going to have to watch Eve of the Daleks because we've got a podcast we're going to do about it.
Yes. And what's interesting to me is if you watch, this is a more modern audience call. I wonder if a general audience would have had any different thoughts about this 6-episode series had they been able to binge watch it. Certainly that would not change anything about the narrative or the lack of interest in the characters. What I found incredibly frustrating is even the little previously on was just simply not enough for me to remember all the ins and outs of that plot line.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I had sat down and watched all 6 episodes in one run and been able to remember everything in that, consolidated viewing, or there was just so much that after a week would go by, it was just nothing was retained.
Do you feel that perhaps that retention is because in your heart or hearts you weren't invested in the program?
I wanted to be invested in the program, and actually I really enjoyed the Weeping Angels episode.
Yes.
What was it called? Shadow of the Angels?
Village of the Angels.
Village of the Angels. I really enjoyed that because even though it was pulling back on those creatures that Moffat had developed, it was just a very, very well-paced, fun, exciting, glued to the edge of my seat episode. I was really engaged with that.
Yeah, I think I said that it was the best Chibnall episode he's ever written.
But it still wasn't enough for me to be mindful or to remember all the ins and outs of the early episodes.
Yeah.
And I don't recall ever having that problem in any of Russell T. or Stephen Moffat's.
Yeah. And there's, when you go back and watch, we'll talk about our classic nostalgia episodes at some point in this podcast. But when you go back and watch old episodes you haven't seen for a while, there's always that element of nostalgia, of familiarity. But I like the fact there are little nuances that you forget about. They just add to that, to add to the story, add to your rewatching, the experience of rewatching it. And I don't feel that if I went back and watched Series 13, I would enjoy being reminded of those things I'd forgotten about.
Absolutely not. And so for those who are just joining this podcast in this episode, we've been going back and watching classic episodes, a mixture of classic and episodes from the newer series, just earlier in the tenure. And I'm reminded, specifically in the classic episodes, those stories are structured with a particular budget and a particular time frame in mind. You could not take the stories that we're getting today and produce them properly with the technology that you had in the time. And I think that is where the stories are so much stronger from the classic episodes, because they really had to do with the stories. Now, of course, are we invested in some of the secondary characters that pop in to the episodes? Maybe not necessarily. Are we invested in the companions? Yes, we are. Are they the Doctor and Rose level emotional level? I think the closest you'd probably get is Pertwee and Katie, or Hartnell and Susan. But I still believe that those stories and the narratives and the writing is so doggone strong for the production value that they had. And believe it or not, you could take those same scripts and produce them today with the production values and the CGI and all the technology that we have. And oh my God, so it's just as it goes back to the story. and I am not invested in the story, nor am I invested in any of the characters.
Yeah. One bugbear of mine, particularly for this series, I've got lots of bugbears for this particular series, is the exposition of the characters talking to themselves or talking to nobody.
Mm-hmm.
And I laughed out loud when the Doctor split herself into three, or was split into three. And I thought, okay, this is my worst nightmare. Not only have I got one Jodie I've got to deal with, now I've got to deal with three Jodies all talking to each other. And it was utter hell. It really was awful. It was you expect that if the character had been split into three, there would be there was a point because she was, I think there was a point. What was the point of being split into three? Because she was in three places at once. I don't quite know why. But you think, use that story thread to give Jodie 1 a particular skill, Jodie 2 a particular skill, Jodie 3 another skill that they can't use separately. They have to come together as three individual entities of the same person, which in essence is what the multi-Doctor stories are all about.
Of course, yes. Yeah.
It's different facets of the same person. Now we've literally got the same facets of the same person talking to themselves, and it drove me mad. I'm thinking, okay, this is my worst nightmare. Exposition talking to themselves. It's audio drama writing at its worst, and we're looking at it on TV in a modern 21st century BBC show.
It's the three doctors with one doctor.
Yeah. Let's talk about the good old days.
Well, the good old days. So why don't you remind everyone, for those who may just be finding episode 6, what we've been doing in previous episodes. Please tell them.
Okay. We challenged ourselves to watch a couple of Rusty Davis episodes because we're so excited he's coming back. And that we did with great gusto. And then we thought, let's just watch a random classic serial of Doctor Who, pre-Rusty Davis, pre-2005, for nostalgia purposes.
Terry always knows what I'm going to choose. So I decided I'm going to fix it this time.
Okay. Can I guess which Doctor you chose?
Certainly you can.
Tom Baker.
Of course. Yes. Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Now everyone knows that I'm a hellaciously huge John Pertwee fan. So I started off with John. So Tom Baker is they're right there together.
And you would have chosen something related to Barry Letts.
Maybe.
So you chose something from season 18.
Well, no.
Oh, okay.
No. I'm so happy that he has figured this one out this time. And I really don't think you'd figure it. You want to try one more guess, which has nothing to do with Barry Letts, nothing to do with Terrence Dix, nothing to do with classic Hinchcliffe Tom Baker. I'm really trying to narrow it down for
you. Douglas Adams.
No. All right.
Go on.
You done? Okay.
I'm done.
Stones of Blood.
Stones of Blood. Okay.
And the reason
the good, the bad, and the ogre. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I absolutely adored that serial because I've always had, a fascination with all the Rollright stones and
silver painted women.
Well, that too. But she was a little tall for me.
Yeah.
And I really didn't like her artist who did all the paintings of her. The Doctor was really good at that point of being able to figure out that the artist was actually painting her, because I didn't think they did a great job looking back on it. And I thought the actor playing DeFreeze was a little melodramatic. But yeah, I thought that the atmosphere in that story was just wonderful. At least in the first 2 episodes. But when you flip to the hyperdrive, when you flip to the hyperdrive episodes, it doesn't maintain it as well. However, it was a fun episode, and golly, Mary Tam.
Oh, bless her. That was. Isn't that midway through the Key to Time season? Isn't it?
It's the third
episode. Okay, midway through. Yeah. And those of us out there who don't know, the Key to Time was a overreaching story arc in season. Now, what season was it? 16. Season 16. With the introduction of the Black Guardian, who then reappeared in the Davison era. I've got a fondness for that particular series. I love the Androids of Tara.
Oh yes, and
because I remember the Target book again. To me, those were Target books. I never saw those until they came on DVD. It's the first time I ever saw them.
The Doctor Who version of Prisoner of Zenda.
Prisoner of Zenda, yes. Yeah. I loved it. Yeah.
David Fisher wrote Stones of Blood.
Yes.
Same one that wrote, I believe, not Legopolis. I'm sorry, the Leisure Hive.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I remember someone saying that Tom had a great relation. He just absolutely loved Beatrix Lehman, who played Professor Rumford.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, she would have made a great companion.
Boy, wouldn't she?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You could tell the chemistry was there.
Yeah, because I kind of find that the idea of an older companion for the Doctor, an older female companion for the Doctor, actually works really well. Colin Baker and Maggie Stables in Big Finish. Mm-hmm. Perfect. I loved Colin and Nicola. I loved their pairing. But when they introduced Maggie Stables, Evelyn Smythe, Big Finish, she was just dream casting for Colin Baker. They just worked. That was, to me, that was the kind of the heyday, the golden era of Big Finish, because she was great foil for him, and I think, Rumford was a great foil for Tom Baker. He kind of respected her craziness.
She kept him on his toes.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I
like where you're going with that older companion, younger Doctor, because the Wilfred Mott, Bernard Cribbins, was just spectacular.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely spectacular.
Yeah. And it works. It brings the Doctor down to earth, for want of a better phrase. It cements his or her it centers him or her. And I'm kind of thinking they probably won't do it for the 14th Doctor, but I'm hoping they will, that if they bring a young Doctor in, they have one Doctor, one older companion.
Single companion.
Single companion.
Please, God, single companion.
Yeah.
It's tried and true. So it was Troughton.
It was.
All right.
It was Troughton. Yeah.
Who else is left? Yeah.
Potty Baker. Yeah.
Well, we did those, so I feel.
Yeah. It was Troughton. Can you guess which one it may have been?
Seeds of Death.
No, I cannot stand that story. And do you know why?
That's actually the first. No, no. It was the second full Troughton serial that I watched.
It was. I first saw it when it was released on BBC Video, and the transfer to video was so bad. The picture was grainy, and all I could hear is, "Yes, Doctor, I'm a whatever he was. And I think it just drove me mad. I cannot stand the Ice Warriors because of that story, because of the permanent hissing when they talk.
Wow.
Yes. So would you like to guess what I actually did watch then? Finally, what do you think?
Well, I don't think you had time to watch the War Games.
Well, you're wrong, because I did.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's actually my favorite.
I love it.
Troughton.
Yeah.
And that's 10 episodes. that flow
Oh,
beautifully.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm still watching another Troughton, which isn't as long, but it almost is as long, and that's dragging. But it's a great story, but it's still dragging. But no, the War Games, I thought I'll give it a go because I haven't seen it for a while, and I remember enjoying it immensely. And 5 hours seems like 5 minutes because it just rattles along at a fair old crack.
It certainly does.
The characters are so well written, Carstairs and all these kind of supporting characters that mean something to the plot, that move the plot along. They have to be there to move the plot along. And the drama of the war chief and the warlord and the Time Lords being introduced, it's just such a, even watching it, knowing all these years later that he is a Time Lord, the moment when the war chief said to Troughton's doctor, "Like me, you're a Time Lord," thinking, oh, what must have that meant in 1969 to these people that like people now watching The Timeless Child, people then must have thinking, he's a Time Lord. And I just thought it was wonderful. It was just Terrence Dicks and Malcolm Hulke were just I love those guys so much.
That that serial I actually watched after reading the Target novelization, which Terrence Dicks wrote.
Yeah.
And occasionally the serials have not, your mind paints in, your mind's eye is much better than, in any case. I'm not meaning to insult any production value here. However, in this case, that serial, having watched it after I read the book, held up beautifully to that book. I mean, I've told you this before, as an American viewer starting in the 80s, I had to watch it when I could watch it. And I got that serial pretty early on. And I decided to watch it on a Saturday morning. So there's certain Doctor Who serials that work best on certain days of the week at certain times of the day. It's just strange.
Yeah.
Go with me. That is a Saturday morning watch for me. And yes. Oh, and the cast. Good grief.
Yeah.
The security chief, James Bree, who is also the key, the Matrix key holder.
Keeper of the Matrix.
Keeper of the Matrix.
Yeah.
He was also in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, by the way. He was Grumbald, who went out, and so Lazenby goes to get into his safe to learn more about Blofeld.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So, and then I've forgotten what the actor's name who played the colonel at the front end of the British colonel.
Smythe.
Oh my God, I love that actor.
Yes, he was. These are good kind of solid actors with good solid roles. And I particularly was fond of the War Chief.
Oh.
So you're thinking of Noel Coleman for General Smythe.
Yes.
David Saville, Lieutenant Carstairs, Jane Sherwin, who was
Derek
Sherwin's wife, who was the producer. And I loved
Philip Maddock.
Philip Maddock was the warlord.
Oh my God.
The War Chief. Now, did you know that the War Chief was meant to be the Master?
No, I did not.
No, I didn't know this either. Now, I was doing a bit of research after I watched the serial. And apparently, in the Terror of the Autons novelization by Terrence Dicks or Malcolm Hulke, it's implied or inferred that the War Chief, they don't actually mention it explicitly, but the War Chief is an earlier version of the Master.
Really? I missed that along the way, or I had forgotten.
Yeah, I was never aware of that. I mean, no, I've probably read the novelization decades ago, literally decades ago. So I never picked up on it, and I didn't really realize that until now. But watching that, and then kind of finding that out after I watched it, thinking actually that makes perfect sense because he's a renegade Time Lord with a wonderful goatee beard, oozes evil in any scene he's in, has no qualms about killing anybody. And yes, he gets killed at the end, but we don't see him regenerate. He just gets dragged away by the warlord's soldiers. So it could very well be that this war chief is the master. And I love the fact that he could be. And so in my head, he is. Because if Terrence Dicks implied he was, then to me, that's good enough.
Edward Brayshaw.
Is
that actor, and he was that cast is just stellar, beautifully cast.
Yeah,
Patrick Troughton's son David is in that one.
Of course, absolutely. Yes, he is. His first appearance, Doctor Who. It's the story. Yes, it's kind of lots of kind of escaping and capture and chasing and so on. But I love the fact that it's various wars. I'm a follower of the Great War. I wouldn't so admire the Great War. It's probably the wrong phrase to use, but sure. I intrigued by yes. Yeah. So to me, that kind of had a meaning for me as well watching it. But it's Patrick Troughton, Fraser Hines, and Wendy Padbury know this is their last hurrah, last hurrah, and they act their socks off. And that moment when Fraser and Wendy go off into the side rat.
Sid Rat. Is it a Sid Rat or a side
rat? Well, it's because that's who you are. Your name is Sid Rat. Like my name is Terry Leptel. It just that the moment they go, you just think this is really sad. And what's really heartbreaking is that Jamie won't ever remember Zoe.
Yep.
It's really sad. And Zoe only remembers Jamie and the Doctor for that one episode. Their one story together, one adventure together. But I just think, poor Jamie just loved little Zoe, and he has no memory of her. Those bad Time Lords. Let's leave it there. And we will hear, or hopefully we'll get some comments finally on our podcasts from all those millions of listeners that we haven't got yet. We'll get there.
We'll get there, Terry.
We'll get there, Sid. And we shall see you all.
Absolutely. Al on Z.
Sid and Terry's Doctor Who podcast was a shaken, not stirred production. Copyright 2021.